Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Alonzo Says Show. I'm your host, Alonzo. We're coming here from our studios here in Pennsylvania. We came up with this concept of coming up with a show that would address American issues that are plaguing the American public every day. Right now, the country's in a state of uncertainty with the pandemic that's ravaging the country, as well as hot spots in Texas and Florida and Georgia, as well as an economy that's on the brink of collapse. Somehow or another, through this whole process, the politicians in Washington has somehow been able to create a $3.4 trillion package that so far has benefited most of corporate America, as well as the congressmen and House of Representatives, cronies, and special interests and big donors. Even though the package was supposed to be for the small business as well as the working class American public. Somehow or another, it hasn't filtered down. Now, you're talking about a $1,200 stimulus check that they sent out to the American public. What you think about it? That was in March. Here it is now going in August. $1,200 doesn't go far. But when you got billions of dollars, millions and billions of dollars that went to corporate America who didn't need this money, due to them having capital as well as money in their account, they was able to take this money and give it as bonuses to their executives. But somehow another $1,200 is too much to ask for them to give to the American public. Now you have the expiring of the $600 insurance benefit that they give most Americans, and you have the Republicans complaining that it's a disincentive to give that to the American public. It's a disincentive for them to go to work. Now, I have an issue with that, because when you look at that as a whole, where they're making more than what they would have made if they was working, what's actually happened when you look at that $600 insurance benefit they're giving them, they're showing you what it's showing you is what a real paycheck looks like. That these people actually have what's called a real paycheck, that corporate America pay more, that these people take this money and put it in the economy that will actually grow the GDP easily. But when you're talking about now, they're complaining that it's too much when you're talking about people who have to make a decision now. Couples, families who have to make a decision on one of us might not be able to go to work because one of us have to watch the kids. That's money out of the paycheck. Then you're talking about single people, single mothers or single fathers who are taking care of their kids now, who don't have a daycare or can't really risk having their kids at other people's houses due to the pandemic. So that picture of $600 just given to people who just sitting around at home eating popcorn and watching movies and don't go to work is disingenuous. But these same Republicans who can tell you this same thing can also go and give money to these big corporate America. And if you take a look at this, ladies and gentlemen, it's $700 billion right now that Congress, on the Democratic and the Republican side, that they okayed, that right now only 13% of that $700 billion has any kind of, what should I say? It has only 13% of transparency, of you knowing exactly who had that money. They've taken 87% that you have and hid it from the public. Now, why would you do that? Why would you sit there and hide that from the public? Now, mind you, ladies and gentlemen, this money is yours. It's not the Congress people. It's not their money. But you've allowed them to sit there and do this. You voted these people in and not held them accountable where they can sit there and pull these rules on you, the American public. While you all sitting here fighting over the most foolish of things, they're sitting there behind closed doors making deals with each other that's sitting there leaving the American working class out in the cold. I don't care what color you are. That's the problem in this country, is a lot of people will sit there and they're fighting over things of this nature when the bigger picture is you take the working class, I don't care what color you are, and they band together and they take their economic dollars and votes and use it as sheer power. You will change the culture in Washington, D.C. You start voting out some of these Democrats some of these Republicans, who these fiscal conservative Republicans, which is just a bunch of bull. Because if you take a look at a lot of the Republican policies, they'll sit down and brag about or scream about being fiscally responsible, but they don't have that problem when they get a huge tax cut and don't worry about, well, who's going to pay for that. But they'll scream when it comes to helping with social program that does actually help out the people who's in need. You can't take one person's face and use it as a weapon. Well, here's a person who's on welfare who don't want to work. Yes, absolutely. There's some people who are on welfare who don't want to work. I agree that they should be at work. But there's also a big portion of people who need that money. Single mothers or parents who are working, but they're working for the lowest of dollars because corporate America decide that they'll give you as less as possible and work you more. You'll work more for less. So they have to scramp around to get Medicare or food stamps or anything of that nature. So you can, in one regard, well, we're not going to push for corporate America to give you a livable wage, but we're going to try to cut your feet off up under you when it comes to you needing help, social help. But they're out there helping themselves to the American money by them sitting there just looting it. They're looting their accounts for themselves and their cronies. Now, it was Trump who said in 2016 that he wanted to drain the swamp, but all he did was drain the swamp of them snakes and put in his piranhas. And he's done nothing no different. He's a businessman at the end of the day. I don't care how much you love Trump. The point of the matter is that this man has not done anything for the working class. You can continue to have jobs created that they're low-paying jobs. Okay? He didn't create the best economy in the world. That economy was running when Obama ran out of office. That's a fact, okay? Now, you have to face facts. Now, while Trump has created some jobs and everything, those are low-paying jobs. We need someone in office who's going to actually get in there, whether that's in Congress or the President of the United States, and start to have these CEOs who's making 100-fold of what their workers are making and making them filthy rich, and they don't want to give them a livable wage. Okay? Those workers deserve that. If they're responsible for your success and your financial success, then they should be rewarded in some way or another one. And we need to start having moderate candidates going into the House or the Senate and Congress who's going to work on both sides of the aisle. I don't care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're Democrat. I don't care if you're independent. You need to have people whose line of thought isn't this political game. You have people now who's talking about the American rights and guns and all this other stuff, but you're forgetting about people as a whole. And you need a candidate who's going to look for a way for all Americans to aspire and to who will be able to benefit from the American success story. Not certain classes of people or certain financial bracket of people, okay? And this show right here where we'll have roundtable discussions and try to come up with solutions and trying to find candidates who's moderate that we can back as the American public throughout the United States and vote for them and put money in backing these people. This show right here, each week, will delve into all kind of different issues from politics to stories going on in America that affects you, even though you might be in Georgia. Something might happen in Denver, Colorado that will reflect change or a problem happening that can affect you down the line. Young people need to start getting involved in politics and learning who their state and local politicians are. So if they're not doing the job, you vote them out. And you start from the bottom and work your way up to the top. And that's what we have a 3-segment show here, where it'll be conversation of the day, which, like I said, we'll be dealing with American politics, anything that's affecting the world as well as the American public, and all kind of different issues that we want to talk about, and I want to hear about from the public as well, and show ideas that we will talk about here on the Alonzo Says Show. Now, second segment we'll be dealing with It's Your Money. Now, this is something that's truly passionate to me. where the American public has become almost complacent, where they allow the businesses to create policies that adversely affects you financially, or you giving up your rights to sue them. If you take a look at a lot of credit cards and bank and all kinds of different things, when people sign on with these companies, they're having what they call this independent arbitration, where you can't take them, where you agree to take them before an arbitrator instead of court. And people understand when you talk about an arbitrator, these are arbitrators that are paid by corporate America to watch them. So for you to think at any given moment that the arbitrator is on your side is foolish at best to think that, okay? Now, you can always supersede that and take them to court, but it's going to cost you more money. What's happening is that lobbyists and the Republican behind it has went up there and created this law that steals away your rights as a citizen. It steals away your consumer rights. The Consumer Financial Division, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, that has been watered down and weakened over the years. That is for you, the American public, and it should be an independent bureau, should be completely separate from the President of the United States as well as Congress. You know why? Because whenever you have someone who will go in as the American president and put in their people, that person is not looking out for you. If they're a Republican who's pro-business, they're not looking out for the American public. What you need is for it to be independent and for you to be able to have the American public to vote these people in, and they have 5-year terms. And then after that term, if they're not doing the job, they can get re-elected in or they get elected out. But it stays away from Congress and the president. And taxes can fund that bureau. Now, I feel like if you're gonna sit there and allow your taxes to take care of Congress, where they can have a slush fund if they get in some kind of financial bind or some kind of legal bind, the American public pay for it, even though they have the money, or their lavish lifestyle and all these other stuff that they can sit there and write checks that you have to cash as the American public, then you'll want to sit there and have a tax on something that can further protect you from the loan sharking and piranhas that we call corporate America. That's why It's Your Money was created, so we can speak about and talk about all the different practices that businesses have that adversely affect the American public. And some people don't even fight. They don't fight back. They allow it to happen. I created it because I've fought back against corporate America. I've fought back against the court system. I've fought back against the grocery store chains. And I have multiple stories that I want to share with you through this season that will help you, that will help arm you and help you better protect yourself against larceny that's been waged against you by the corporate American businesses. That includes state and local with mechanics and car dealers and banks and all of these different entities that sit there and just think of new ways every day to sit there and rip the American public off. I want you all to join me in this fight, because one person can't do it all. You just can't. But when you take multiple people, there's strength in numbers where people decide, you know what, we're not going to take this no more, and we're going to hold you accountable, or we're going to take our money out of here. Wells Fargo has just been caught again in another scandal where they're sitting there taking people's mortgage payment and freezing it. As though, and these people saying, well, I never asked for that. They say, well, we're going to be helping these people, these homeowners out because we're in a pandemic. But a lot of people stated that we never asked for that. They automatically enrolled me in that. And what happens is, when they did that, it prevented the homeowners from being able to renegotiate their mortgage rate that they get. Or they could leave Wells Fargo, and that was Wells Fargo's plan, is to keep you in bondage with them. So by the time that they get you out of that frozen mortgage payment, and they release it, and you go back to business as normal, those low rates are already shot back up, and that way they've kept you back at at Wells Fargo. We have to fight against this kind of tyranny that Wells Fargo and most of these banks continue to engage in this kind of practice, in this fraudulent practice. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask you to join me. This is a call of action, ladies and gentlemen, for you to join me, for people who's sick and tired of these unscrupulous practices, whether it's through Congress, whether it's through businesses, whatever it might be. We want to fight it. And we, like as I stated before, we want to look for candidates who's going to work on behalf of the American working class. Now, like I said, we have issues. Racism is an issue in this country. It takes a strong person to admit that there's a problem, that legacy, structural racism has created a cradle for people of color through the housing, education, work-wise, that has prevented legacy of wealth. Generational wealth has just been totally wiped out through racism. Okay, if you go back and look at, and then let me make this abundantly clear. You have a lot of people today use the excuse of, well, the black people do this or they do that. They don't have two-parent families, or they don't listen to the police, or they do. There are white families there are white individuals that don't have two-parent families. There are white individuals and white individuals who don't listen to the cops, who break the law. But those situations does not give account of when people are working at jobs that they're well qualified for, that they're passed over based on their color or croonism or nepotism, okay? So if I'm going in a bank and I have a good credit rating and you're going to purposely make sure that I don't stay in a certain area because of my color, or you're going to give me a higher rate even though I qualify for a lower one, that has nothing to do with two-parent family and me not listening or any of this other stuff. That has something to do with structural racism. That's what that has something to do with. So when America it's time that America, a certain segment, because you're going to have a certain segment of America who's just going to be where they are. You can talk to them till they're blue in the face when they're stuck where they are in terms of racism, because that's what drives racism. It's ignorance. It's ignorance and just deciding that I'm just going to plant my feet here even though I know it's wrong. You don't try to appeal to those people. You appeal to those people who say, you know what, I know something is wrong, and I want to do my part to see if we can try to change the trajectory of this situation. Those are the people that I'm appealing to, that you start to look for people who's going to look at everyone in terms of trying to take care of them as an American, because black Americans are just as American as white Americans. It's just in a lot of cases we aren't treated that way. So we want to create a more diverse and inclusive group of people that supports this show and who we're going to support. That's what it's money going to be about. Now, third segment, we'll be talking about relationships, or a situation that involves relationships, whether you're single, you're married, or in a relationship. We're going to talk about an array of different issues. We're going to talk about taboo issues that people either are afraid to talk about, or they're narrow-minded to talking about it. At this show, we won't do that. We're going to tackle topics that people might not want to touch. But see, we're going to do that because we don't really care what a lot of people think. See, that's what drives a lot of people to doing a lot of stuff that they do. It's based on what other people think, or what they feel about them, or what make them feel important. We don't do that because I personally don't care what people think. At the end of the day, I make decisions based on what I feel, not because someone else told me that this is the best thing to do. See, that's what a lot of people, the reason why American public, a big segment of American public is where they're at, because they're the sheep mentality. You're going to follow that herd, even if it takes you off the cliff. And what I mean by that, for a prime example, is You have Donald Trump that sit there and told the working white class that you are the forgotten people, and I'm here to sit there and drain the swamp. Now you look at it 4 years later, there's nothing that he has put in legislation that has benefited the working white class at all. If you can sit and say, I got an extra $20 or $40 in my check, that don't say a lot, and it speaks in volumes of how much you just missed. But I bet you Trump cronies and corporate America can speak about what he done for them with that big tax cut and the big subsidies that he given them, or the money that he's made for himself and his company and the Trump organization. But somehow another one, here we are 4 years later, and you're in no better shape than you was when he came in office. He sold you a bill of goods. Whether you want to admit it or not, he sold you a bill of goods. You having gun rights and all this other foolishness, that has nothing to do with putting money in your pocket to take care of your family and your kids. All Americans that I know of that are real Americans, they just want to go to work, make a good living, go home, spend time with their family, and be able to go out to different places and enjoy their family without having to deal with foolishness, blatant racism, sexism, ignorance, political foolishness. See, I don't have a problem with anyone being a Republican or a Democrat. It has nothing to do with what you are. It has something to do with what it stands for. You understand what I'm saying to you? It stands for what, because don't get me wrong, you have prejudiced conservatives and you have prejudiced liberals. You have liberals that will sit there and march with you all day long and fight for your cause, but they would not let you date their daughter or live next door to them. That's a fact. Okay? So let's be realistic when we're looking at this. You need to have people that want to see you have a better living like they are, and they're not sitting there placing policies or legislation in the way of progress for you. And that's what's happening right now. We have to band together. And like I said, in this segment, we'll talk about relationships, where we'll speak about all kind of different issues, stuff that people might not be, it's going to make them uncomfortable. Good. That's what this show is all about. And there are going to be people who just not going to like it. And you know what? This show ain't for you. Keep going. Find some other narrow-minded, closed-minded place that you'll feel welcome. Because your closed mind won't be welcome here. You understand? So, I'm looking for people who have thick skin, who can stand up, and they can shout across the room, and they stand up for their principle. Because I'm a principle person. My principles aren't for sale. And some people's principle is. They will have a hardline stance, and then when somebody say something that makes them uncomfortable or they're scared of what somebody's going to think, they'll change their principle. I don't. I've did that all my life, and I've had situations where people didn't like me or they had assumptions or whatever that might have been. But it never deterred me, and I didn't care. And now that I'm older, I really don't care now. So I want you to join me, ladies and gentlemen. Please subscribe to my show or join me at my webpage, which is on the bottom here, or join my email list as well. And let's join this journey together as we try to figure out a new pathway for America, for all American people, in a more moderate way, and not in a strict conservative way, and not more in a more ultra liberal way, but in a way that it's going to put money in your pocket and you can support candidates who's going to look out for your interests and not special interests. Going in on It's Your Money, where people will now become armed with information, where they can fight back against tyranny from companies who's every day taking away your consumer rights right before your eyes, and having lobbyists who's going up to Congress who sit there and pass bills that continue to take your consumer rights away from you. And relationships, where we'll meet them dead head on and talk about issues and give it to you in your face, whether you like it or not, and you join in and make your opinion known, and we'll go from there. From everybody here at the Alonzo Says Show, we look forward to you, America, through this season 1 of the Alonzo Says Show. Thank you. God bless, and may all Americans reach prosperity at God's speed. Good night.